In this video, we're going to take a look at set theory. And there's a lot of different vocabulary, lots of different notation we have to get used to. So I'm going to use the deck of cards to illustrate some of the notations that we use in set theory. And for those of you that aren't familiar with cards, there are clubs, diamonds, hearts, and spades. And for each of those suits, there are an ace, a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a jack, a queen, and a king. For instance, we could talk about sets. And a set is simply a bunch of objects that can be grouped together. So for example, all of the jacks could be grouped together and that would form a set. So here's my jacks. I could say they are a set. And usually I would write that like this. I might use J for jacks. So J for jacks would equal, and then we use these parentheses brackets, and I would list the clubs, the jack of clubs, the jack of diamonds, I'll just use D for diamonds, the jack of hearts, and the jack of spades. They're a set. They're a group of things that are some objects that can be grouped together. We can talk about elements. So an element is simply an object that is in a set or belongs to a set. So for example, the jack of clubs would be an element of the set of jacks. So the jacks here were a set of our cards, and they consisted of 4 elements: the jack of clubs, the jack of diamonds, the jack of hearts, the jack of spades. So each one of these things would represent an element. Okay, so an element is just an object in a set. And if we looked at all of these cards, each one of these cards would represent an element. We can also talk about a universal set. And the universal set is simply the set that includes all of the elements. Sometimes we also call that the sample set. So the universal set in our example would be all of these cards. So a set was just a bunch of objects that can be grouped together. So for instance, we group the jacks together, but we could also just group all the clubs together. That would be a set. All the diamonds would be a set. All of the fives would be a set. But the universal set is all of the cards, everything that we would be working with. We can talk about subsets. And a subset is simply a set whose elements all belong to another set. So for example, the heart face cards. That's these ones right here. The heart face cards would be a subset of the hearts. All 3 of these cards belong to the larger set, which is the hearts. So that's a subset. And usually we would write that like this. This is a short. So if I used H face to represent the hearts that are face cards, then we use this symbol here, meaning subset. So the heart face cards are a subset of the hearts. So this is some notation. H face, and it's kind of like a C. H. So the face cards are a subset of the hearts. The complement is defined to be all the elements that do not belong to the set. So it's like the opposite of the stuff. So for example, the complement of spades would be all of the cards that are not spades. So if we wanted to know what is the complement of spades, well, we just have to pick all the elements that aren't spades. So that would be all of the clubs, all of the diamonds, and all of the hearts. And the terminology or the notation that we use to represent complement. So if the question is, for the example here, we did the complement of spades, we might do this, S, and then we put a little prime up here. And so when you see S prime, that means all the cards that are not spades. Okay, so complement is the stuff that is not this, and it's denoted by a little prime up here. The last couple of definitions that I want to let you know about is the empty set. And that's simply, as you'd expect, a set with no elements. There's nothing in it. So for example, if I wanted to look at the set of black hearts, that can't be, because there are no hearts that are black. Hearts are all red cards. So, come back here. So the set of black hearts would be an empty set since there are no black hearts. We can talk about disjoint sets. Those would be two or more sets that have no elements in common. So for example, the hearts, which are all of these cards here, and the clubs, which are all of these cards, would be disjoint sets, since there's no card that belongs to both sets. So these are some of the vocabulary that you need to be familiar with and that we will use when we're talking about set theory. So it's good that you're familiar with those things.